Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 64 of the Whatnauts review show. It's Nintendo 64, yay! We are here to talk about some Transformers comics, but we will get to that in a sec. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, what are you up to today?
Oh boy, I played an RPG with my family, and I'm just trying to get my apartment as clean and presentable as possible because I have to go hunting for a new roommate.
Oh man!
Mm-hmm.
So is the RPG the Star Wars one that you had told me about?
Yeah,
back?
my brothers and my nephew and I are playing Edge of the Empire together.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. I did not do anything as fancy. We did record an episode of the Captain's Log this morning. Our schedule is a little bit different than usual, but we did that, and then I went to go eat at a barbecue place for lunch.
Oh, yes, choice.
Very, very, very good. It hit the spot. It was dirt cheap too. But I guess I didn't get much. It was just like a pulled chicken sandwich and a drink, and that was it. And it was like $6.
What's your preferred barbecue side? Because I'm a solid potato salad lady.
So I'm a bit of a weirdo. Like I like French. I'm a very picky eater, but I think I like to just stick with French fries.
That you can't beat them. It is not barbecue specific, but it is a reliable classic.
Unless it's like barbecue chicken, in which case, just by itself, not like a barbecue chicken sandwich. But if it's actual just like barbecue chicken, then sure, some kind of like potato something. I'm not a potato salad fan or egg salad fan, but yeah, just some vegetables to go on the side, some asparagus or something cooked in
asparagus.
Bacon. Yeah,
I know that is
bacon. It's real good.
Okay, I know that is a real vegetable people eat. I've never seen that paired with a barbecue before. It's like your beans, your coleslaw.
Yeah,
your asparagus.
Fine. I'm not a coleslaw fan. Asparagus works fine. If you've had broccolini, that works fine too. But it has to like. I don't like that stuff by itself. It's like you're like, hey, I made asparagus. I'll be like, all right. What else do you have? But
you have fun.
If it's cooked in like bacon grease, it's so
that
good.
Improves every food. You could put, I don't know,
bacon in cereal. It improves it. Every food, you said, right?
Just cereal, just like a pile of blueberries,
a salad. There you go. But as I said, we are here to talk about some Transformers comics. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you did not know, each week here on the Whatnauts review show, we have a new story to talk about. Actually, you know what? I should get away from saying a new story to talk about, because it's not always new. It's a different story each week. Who cares? It's semantics. We have a different story to talk about each week. Could be a comic book, could be a movie, TV show, something else. We rate it, we watch it, we do what we have to do. Come back here and talk about it. These Transformers comics that we are talking about this week is The Last Stand of the Wreckers, or the Wreckers Saga, to be more exact.
Yeah, Last Stand of the Wreckers is ironically the first story in this collection, followed by Sins of the Wreckers and Requiem of the Wreckers.
You are correct. And this is written by Nick Roche, who also had help by James Roberts in Volume 1. Nick Roche also did some of the pencils he did the pencils for all of these, if I'm not mistaken. There's a bunch, there's a whole list here of all sorts of different inkers and letterers and colorers and all that stuff. I'm not going to read all of them out, but just to name a few, Guido Gucci, I believe is how you say his name, helped with the pencils in Volume 1. Josh Burcham helped with the colors in Volume 2. And if I can get this thing to scroll, Sean Lee and Tom B. Long helped out on the letters in Requiem of the Wreckers, which there was a missed opportunity to spell Requiem with a W-R, and they did not. So, shame on y'all.
I believe we made this joke last week.
You did, yes.
And now I realize, this story is far too serious for wordplay like this.
Yeah.
This is a surprising comic. I mentioned this to you earlier, that I was expecting with a Transformers comic series something more like bam, pow, like fights and car chases and cool transformation scenes.
Big explosions.
Yeah. And it is a dense, complex, multi-layered story about war crimes.
Yeah. So I am not a particular Transformers
Me either.
fan. I guess that's the right word. I've just never gotten into it. I've seen a couple of those Michael Bay films, and I don't really like those. I liked the first one enough.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing the first one and also enjoying it fine.
Have you seen Bumblebee?
I haven't, but I've heard
Neither
Bumblebee's pretty good.
I've heard good things, and I believe that's the one where they all actually look like how they're supposed to look like. It's like they all look like for the old cartoons, stuff like that. But yeah, so we decided to pitch some giant robot centric comics and anime and stuff like that this week because Neon Genesis Evangelion is now on Netflix. We did not end up picking Neon Genesis Evangelion, but we went with the good old Transformers, which I don't know much about. So this was an interesting one. I looked online for like what are some good places to start the Transformers comics, because one of the comic book podcasts that I listen to, House to Astonish, have for the past like 2 or 3 years been like, man, these Transformers comics are amazing. They are so good. They have no right to be this good. How are they this good?
Yeah.
And I've just never checked them out. And so I looked around online and I saw a couple titles I could potentially check out. And the Wreckers Saga was also one. Like, hey, you should read this story. And then I went onto one of the Discord servers that I was on, and I was like, hey, what is, like, if I wanted to get into the Transformers comics, where should I start? What would be a good, like, jumping on point? And I got some pointers and stuff, and then I was like, all right, what about side stories? Like, is there just, like, a one-off side story? You don't really need to know much else. And they mentioned the Wreckers Saga. And the pitch was like the Wreckers Saga is basically Suicide Squad, but for the Transformers. I was like, all right, sounds good to me.
Yeah, like they're not so much like the Suicide Squad in that they are criminals who it's like, okay, this is your punishment that you have to. They are not actual like legal criminals, most of them.
Yeah,
like were not taken out of a prison and told, okay, you know, you have a chance to get out of here if you go on this super deadly mission for us and you survive. It's more like, this is the team we call in for really
the extra dangerous
weird
stuff.
Yes. Like, this is the most hard scrabble A-team we've got. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that sounded neat. So that was the one that I pitched. You picked it. And we got to read it this week. Let's dive into a bit of a synopsis, and then do our general thoughts and stuff like that, and then we will dive into spoilers after that and start breaking things down. So I'm gonna say right off the top, I thought this was a little confusing especially volume 1.
Yes, it drops you right into the thing. Yeah,
so I just from what I could gather. So it essentially, the Wreckers is basically their Suicide Squad or their X-Force if you're a Marvel fan. to go in and do these dangerous jobs. It sounds like the Wreckers have been a thing in the past, but haven't really been around recently. And they are putting a new team together to go to, I just forgot what it was called. I should have this pulled up
It's like
here.
G9, I think, is the name of this prison planet.
Yes, I believe it is G9. Where's the IDW page? There it is. Doop, doop. Yeah, it's abbreviated as G9. It is Garrus 9, which is basically a prison. And it has fallen to the Decepticons 3 years prior, and no communications have gone in or out since then. So no one really knows what's happening here. And the Wreckers are kind of sent in to figure out what is going on. That's pretty much volume 1. I won't spoil too much past that, but we learn things kind of down the road in volume 2 of like why they were really there, what they were trying to, I don't say trying to accomplish, but we learn more about the characters in volume 2, who they actually are, what their purpose is, why they're actually on the team, how all that comes into play, and stuff like that. So it's a neat story, but like I said, it's a little bit confusing for new readers. I don't know if I would recommend this as a one-off story. You don't need to know anything else.
No.
It felt like jumping in out of volume like 5 or 6 instead of like, this is a one-off story, you don't need to know anything else, here it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of background going on, and it took me a long time to sort of find my footing, and even then I'd have to remind myself, like, okay, who's this one again? Like, what are the relationships to each other, and who's old friends, and what are all of your powers?
Yeah, and it's all characters you're not really familiar with. If you're just a passing Transformers fan, they make mention of Megatron, they make mention of Optimus. I think they mention Bumblebee once, but that's about it. Of things that I recognize. I think they also mentioned like Starscream and Soundwave or whoever. But like, yeah. Besides that, like I know absolutely nothing about the Transformers. So this was a bit of jumping into like ice water.
You are
like, oh my god,
thrown into a big battle scene with a ton of characters, and you slowly have to learn, like, they'll mention each other's names. You're like, okay, that one's that guy. And I don't know about you, but I had a hard time following the visual language of this book, which is not the book's fault. It's me. I'm not like a mechanically minded person. Like, if you
get into that.
If you took like my license plate and any personal effects out of my car and dropped me in the middle of a parking lot and said, which car is your car? Like, it'd take me a long time. So having all of these robots that I have to learn to differentiate from each other, and I'm just thrown into a giant crowd scene with all of them at once. It took me a long time to like track that. This one's this color. They got like a fin on their head. You know, this one has like wings sort of deals. You know, that one is this thing on its arm. And like a long time a long time for me to untangle, which I think is just me, like, not being used to all robot stories where I don't have in more than one human face.
Not
to
all
try
robots
and
look alike, Melissa. Jeez. No, so yeah, so I think for that reason alone, I think this is more for someone who is already a Transformers fan. From what I gathered, this is kind of a who's who of minor characters. I think there's a couple new ones too, but yeah, this is for someone who I think is much more steeped in Transformers lore. But that being said, if you are able to put in the work and parse out like, who's who and all that stuff, I think it's a pretty good story.
I know I didn't get everything in this story, but what I got, I was pretty impressed by.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is a prose section, like at the end of we read this all in like one big collected volume. And at the end of Last Stand of the Wreckers before Sins of the Wreckers, there's like a 15 pages of just prose that are outstanding. That
Yeah.
was my favorite part of the entire thing by
I was
far.
gonna say too, that was my favorite part. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that about covers it. Unless
Yeah.
you have something else to add for general thoughts and synopsis stuff.
I would just also warn the listener, if you want to try reading this, I had to speed read this just because I didn't have any time in my week until last night. This is a dense book. Like,
Hmm.
this will take you 6 hours or something like that
I
to
spent
really.
all day
Yeah,
yesterday
it's beyond
reading
all the
it.
prose pages that are in there. This is maybe the wordiest comic I've ever read. There's not a lot of like just
We're
punch splash pages or
we're
anything like that.
we're gonna have to go back and read some Stan Lee. 'Cause, oh boy, talk about wordy.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and so I had to burn through this thing just
Hmm.
by the confines of my schedule, but it deserves better than that. Like, really give yourself the time, sit down, pay some loving attention to the Wreckers Saga,
Yeah,
and that's the way anybody should really be reading this.
yeah,
You can't make a light afternoon out
yeah.
of the Wreckers Saga.
That being said, if you do also want to try it out, I believe the first 5 issues, which is
Mhm.
the entirety of Volume 1,
Mhm.
is available on Comixology Unlimited. So if you are subscribed to that, you can check out those first 5 issues,
Mhm.
which is The Last Stand of the Wreckers. So go check it out. Melissa, we got some housekeeping to do before we get
Yeah.
on to spoilers stuff, though.
Mhm.
Do you want to tell them about what we covered last week here on
Yeah.
the review show?
Last week's review show topic was Titan AE. This
Mm-hmm.
is an animated film from the year 2000. This is from Don Bluth, and
Y2K.
and it is a sci-fi story about like the last of humanity living in space after aliens destroyed Earth, and this young man who realizes his scientist father before he died gave him the last key to find this science project that could resurrect Earth, and it's sort of a fun ragtag space misfit adventure.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff indeed. Um, we also have a bunch of Patreon exclusive episodes of the Whatnauts review show. We recently just did one on. Was it? Did we just do Mob Psycho, or was that the one that
Yes,
was before that?
towards the beginning of the month, we released our
That's right.
episode about season 2 of Mob Psycho 100, the anime series. And then coming up for July, in the first couple weeks of July, we'll be doing a kind of multimedia pseudo web comic
Hmm.
story called 17,776.
Exactly. I
Mm,
was confused. I thought maybe we did something after Mob Psycho, but I guess not, because we only
no.
do those once a month.
Yep.
So there you go. That is at patreon.com/the whatnauts if you want to support us. And those are for people at the $3 tier
Hmm.
and above. However, if you want to support us at the $1 tier, you guys
Also
can
good.
get access to the live streams of this show. We do live streams for patrons only on this show. Yeah, we also did an episode this morning of the Captain's Log.
Hmm.
We talked about a whole bunch of things.
Clowns, Star Trek.
Yeah, yeah, that is a wide variety of stuff.
What we would like to have hung over our mantles and our dream homes. Lots of
Yes.
topics.
All sorts of stuff. So go check out the Captain's Log as well. You guys can find out more info at thewhatnauts.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. You can just search the Whatnauts and all of our shows will pop up there. I also do want to say we have a Toy Story 4 spoiler cast
Yes.
on the Reactor Core. So you guys shouldn't go go check that out. And that's CORPS. The Reactor Corpse.
That's
How we
right.
spell that one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go check that out. If
Yeah.
you guys went to go see Toy Story 4, you guys can get some spoilery goodness.
Mm-hmm. That's our feed for podcasts about brand new, exciting, big things. And so coming up soon, we'll do one on Spider-Man Far From Home.
Mm-hmm.
Not properly scheduled yet, but it's a given. We will
This
be there
next
for
week
Pete.
sometime we will have it
Yes.
recorded. Let's get on to spoilers though.
Yes.
All right. We are in spoiler territory for the Wreckers Saga. If you haven't read this yet, go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it is a little bit dense, a little bit confusing, but there's a lot to pick out of this.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, just kind of piggybacking off of that, off of the stuff we've kind of already said.
Yeah.
I almost want to say that I didn't like Volume 1.
Yeah, you are directly into it and it doesn't really let up very much, and I don't
Yeah.
feel like the characters were given great introductions.
They weren't, especially if you're new, like
Yeah.
you were. It was like it was another robot is all it
Yeah,
was.
exactly.
Like, it just,
and also,
yeah.
like, very rarely in that first volume do they ever actually do the transform thing. So you don't even have like, well, that one's a helicopter and that one's a tank and that one's a big truck. Like, it's robots, just all these big old robots, and like
Yeah.
they're all running in a pack together, and I would have to stop and really look at it and pick out where one robot body ended and then
Yeah.
the next one began.
And to me, I think the big problem with Volume 1 was actually the artwork. The artwork is phenomenal technically, but it's very... I don't want to use the word zoomed in because that makes me think of the Michael Bay films. It's not that bad, but it's because the Transformers, because these wreckers, as they call themselves, that's their crew, because they're so big, like these are like big giant robots.
Oh yeah, they're like a
they
two-story
take up,
house.
They end up taking a lot of space on the page, and when there's 4 or 5 of them, they take up all of the space, and so there's almost no room for context or background or characters like that. So it ends up being this like almost stained glass looking,
like it's just all colors and shapes.
Yeah, and it's because they're not necessarily humanoid. They are kind of, but they're also
and that
not,
they have like a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, but like their torsos are all different shapes. Some of them have stuff coming out of their backs.
Yeah, it ends up making this very muddled pages.
Yes.
I'm just like, I don't know exactly what I'm looking at. I don't know where one robot ends and the other one starts.
Yeah,
is that Springer's arm? Which, yes, by the way, my last name is Springer, and the main character of this whole thing, his name is Springer. I had no idea. I was just like, oh, okay.
he doesn't have springs, which I don't expect it would be that on the nose, but I was kind of disappointed he couldn't like jump really high.
Usually their name has something kind of to do with what they do.
Twin Twist has 2 drills.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, I guess Optimus Prime isn't like, so what do you do?
I can't break that down into a mechanical part.
I guess maybe if you want to get extra meta about it, he's the chosen one. He's the optimal prime. Like,
let's talk about the art some more, and then let's get back to Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
I will say that the art, I loved. It's so colorful. Like, I couldn't tell what was going on, but it is a delight to look at.
Absolutely.
And whenever there's like a laser beam or a flame or anything that's supposed to be lit up, the kind of illumination effect they had around it was really gorgeous. Like, everything had this real lovely glow to it that I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed every time it would come up. I just wish uh I mean, this isn't Power Rangers. You can't have one robot per color, one color per robot. It can't be that
No.
simple. But I wish as nice as the lighting effects were, I wish we would have gotten more time with them and like plain flat lighting to really get used to and lock into our heads.
Which one's which?
You know,
So
this one is this color, this one's the other color before it starts getting into like shadows and shades and like tinting those colors. And then you're not
yeah.
used to them yet. You're like, is that the same guy?
Yeah. So I think for me, they actually ended up solving that problem in volume 2.
It's
And
a lot easier to keep track of it in volume two.
ultimately what I think they did is they zoomed out.
Yes.
They showed these characters in context.
Yeah, there's
And
so much
yeah.
more background and negative space and scale in volume two.
Yeah. And that helped me recognize
hmm
who was who. I still don't know if I could put a face to a
Oh
name
yeah,
just because
like if you
we
held
didn't spend
flashcards
enough
up to me now, I
time. Yeah, but
know I couldn't do it.
it was easy enough for me to be like, okay, I know this guy is this one right here. This is where he stops and where he starts, and all of that stuff. And he's
Yes.
talking to this guy. Okay, he said that guy's name is Springer.
Yeah.
Springer's the green and purple, or the green
Green
and
and orange.
orange one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, all right, if that's Springer, and then he said, okay, yeah,
Yeah, and Volume 2 also had a slightly smaller cast, and they were in oh, like they weren't all like running together in a clump. Like the blocking of
yeah.
Volume 2 was better. They
There you go.
stood apart from each other, and that made it a lot easier. And I imagine if you are a seasoned Transformer or like mech person, like your brain has just developed that visual language to tell apart and identify big robot bodies easier than mine does. So I don't know if it's necessarily like it's not all the art. It's like I'm not prepared for this. I am not your audience. I don't have that toolbox to figure out what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, and it's yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like the art is technically very good.
hmm
It's just I they made a creative choice to be very very close up and
Yeah.
have these characters taking up most of the panels and most of the pages, and I think it didn't really work in the comics favor,
hmm
unfortunately. And because of that, because I couldn't really parse out who's who or what was happening exactly, I could get the gist of things, but it didn't stick for me
Yes.
until I read the prose stuff.
Yes.
Just after that, there's about like 15 pages of prose. And yeah, we mentioned it before. I loved the prose stuff. I thought that was
I
phenomenal.
I would read like I would pay decent money for just a big Transformers
Just
novel that
yeah,
just occasionally has pictures in it. I feel like that's the better way to take it instead of a graphic novel. I'd like to have a novel with graphics in it.
list of Transformers books.
Haha!
Seeing if
I just want
there's
more of that stuff. Like getting inside their heads and learning how they think, how they view the other robots was so much more useful to me than actually seeing the robots, believe it or not. Being told instead of being shown was a big help here. Like it's First Aid is that medic robot,
yeah.
and there's a scene where he meets Springer, and I didn't know that Springer is apparently a hot transformer because that's how First Aid is reacting to him. Like, whoo, oh, like you remember in Winter Soldier where that guy in the Apple store just looks at Captain America and he's like, whoo, specimen. That's what this guy does to Springer. Like, see, I
Well,
couldn't tell he was handsome.
so
I
let me
don't
see if
know.
I can find that. You're not necessarily wrong, but I think something else was happening
Mm,
there that we didn't get much of an explanation for, and this is why I loved the prose,
yeah.
because it really opened up the
Mhm.
world and explained what we just read in volume 1. Let me see if I can skip ahead to these
And
pages
something
here.
something these comics do is that they have a lot of robot, I wouldn't say gore feels like a very strong word for it, but there's like visceral injuries that these robots
Hmm.
sustain. And like it's nothing you can really comprehend, but you can tell, oh, that's bad. And it's even worse
Yeah.
what they're describing in the prose sections. Like there was this disaster some years ago where there was this like acid rain that fell from the sky and it just Swiss cheesed a bunch of Transformers.
Yeah.
Like they're just,
Some kind of chemical weapon.
yeah, it just
It
dissolved
was
them. Like they're just barely holding together.
Gideon's glue, I think is what
Gideon's
they.
glue is what
Yeah.
they call it. Yeah, and like having that described to me is so much more effective than somebody actually illustrating it.
Mm-hmm. So what was hoping to get at here, I'm not going to be able to find the
Hmm.
exact part in the prose right now, but I can at least show some people that like what these pages look
Hmm.
like. And it's just these two columns of all that stuff. But what you were referring to when First Aid sees Springer, he's looking at all of the like Autobot and Decepticon. I guess the Decepticons weren't there, but he's looking at the Autobot
Yes.
badges,
Hmm.
and it was saying that he was touching them to see if he
Yeah,
could
I
see
liked
something.
that.
And if you kind of read between the lines, it looks like he was kind of a plant, not a secret agent, but he was running some secret missions
Yes.
because there was a transformer out there that would send messages by basically sniping some people
Yeah, like
in their Autobot badge and shooting a specific eye, and the
yeah, if the
bullet would lodge in there. So I think that's what First Aid was
yeah, like
actually
if the
doing.
right eye is knocked out, somebody has marked this is a potential wrecker for you. Like you're in charge of notifying Springer about who could be
Or
new on the wrecker team.
yeah, or take the bullet out, and the bullet will have a chip inside it with
Yeah.
information and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
So
And
there's he is doing that, but and like he's admiring like the war wounds or the lack of war wounds, like the great repairs Springer has had. But
mhm.
there's also something there's something to me like that's a handsome robot right there.
That is a damn good looking robot. Wait, is that the part where he was like, man, that guy's shoulders?
Yes, yes.
That's so funny. Um, but yeah, I thought the prose was really because that helped me to understand what actually happened in Volume One. That
Hmm.
hey, the prison planet thing, what was happening there was terrible. Yes, but that's kind of a side story. There's actually a computer there that had a that was basically the record holder for all of the Autobots' war crimes,
Hmm.
like all of the bad shit that if
Yeah.
it got out was that would be bad. This would make the good guys look like the bad guys.
Hmm.
That stuff was on that planet, and that's what they had to go do. They had to find that computer and basically download all of that stuff or destroy it and
Yeah.
somehow smuggle it off. Um, and I didn't like I saw that happen in the comics, but it was just like, wait, why did they change to go look for this computer? I don't understand. Like,
Hmm.
yeah. And then once I read all of this stuff, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So that's why they can't get this thing out, and it's in this hot bed of this prison planet that's being controlled by this Decepticon that basically
Yeah.
wants to take over all the other Decepticons because he doesn't like
To get
Megatron.
Megatron's attention.
Yeah, he just yeah. So it's just like this like super sensitive information is in this really really bad spot right now, and we need to get it
Yeah,
out.
it's this giant computer that was used to like this calculates numerically guilt.
Yes.
Like it mechanizes crimes. And so it's in this prison planet that's controlled by Decepticons. It's mostly Decepticons. But the trick is that that thing was also there for the Autobot war crime trials.
Hmm.
And if that information got out and you'd learn, oh, none of these people got reprimanded, there were no consequences for any of this.
Yeah, then it's like, oh, that's not good. Maybe the
Hmm.
good guys aren't so good.
Yeah. And the second volume is all about answering for that. Because, like, the kind of bureaucrat in charge of all this is that Autobot named Prowl. And in the second volume, like, Prowl's gone missing. It's Prowl having to answer for all of these secrets and, like, throwing all of these people into violent situations or knowing somebody is like too off the rails to be allowed to still work and like he's fine, he's effective, he's murderous but he's effective, like let him run around
Yeah,
out there
or
killing
this
whoever.
guy's about to die. We can use him
Yes,
anyways to as like a sacrifice to
that was, yeah, the story of Iron Fist was one of my, maybe my favorite thread in this entire thing, especially the story of him in Skyfall.
Yeah, that kind of ended up being, I think, the underlying bedrock of the whole story.
Yeah.
That and I would say Springer's origin, but I feel like Springer's origin ends up being a lot more inconsequential
Yes.
than Iron Fist and Skyfall.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
It's like they're friends, uh, and
Like
then it turns out Skyfall has been sabotaging Iron Fist because he wants this lab spot. Like he's got like a workbench in this incredibly prestigious, hard to get into lab. It's like you just have to wait for somebody to die or retire to move into a new lab.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just academic
I
backstabbing.
I feel like I kind of would have liked the story from that perspective. Like,
Mm-hmm.
tell me that story and have that be the Wreckers Saga. Have Iron Fist or whoever his name was, be the main character. Tell it from his perspective. Where he is this scientist basically making weapons for the
Mm-hmm.
Autobots. He makes something that is basically insanely heinous.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily overly destructive, but it will kill someone every single time.
Yeah, it's a bullet that when fired aims directly for the head.
Yeah,
And
it
they're like,
locks on to that.
this is guaranteed to kill every time. This should be used so rarely. Like we're gonna sanction this. Like you're not allowed to continue this experiment anymore. Like this is too harsh for us.
Yeah,
But the gun accidentally went off during a prototype testing phase.
and he
And
shoots himself in the head.
so he's got a bullet slowly working its way towards his own brain. And then he finds out his best friend programmed it to do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And just that, I think, just by itself is a fascinating story. The
yes.
betrayal there is amazing, top
I
notch.
The relationships between all of these Transformers
Yeah.
is really interesting. And I wish we got, because the prose gives you so much depth to those
Hmm.
that doesn't really come across as much in the comics themselves.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff there. Like I love Verity and Stakeout is a great relationship.
Hmm.
I love at the end in Requiem when it turns out Tarantulas and Overlord like are kind of a thing now. That was fun for me.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the big bad from issue 1, issue 2, or the first 2 volumes, in this last third like kind of wrap up volume, both of them have survived. Both of them have survived and like live in a cave together and are ambiguously maybe a couple.
Yeah. So, volume 2
Mhm.
is I think immediately you can tell the art is a little bit different.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if it is a thing where they got feedback on the art and it was just like, hey, it's a little confusing to know who's who.
Mhm.
But I think the art was fantastic in
Yeah.
volume 2. This one I didn't necessarily like the story as much, but I do think it wrapped everything up pretty
Mm-hmm.
nicely, and it was really cool to see the more like Beast Wars style Transformers stuff.
Yeah.
I think they had a specific name for them, and it wasn't
Um.
the I forget what
Yeah.
they called them, but it's not what I remember of
Yeah.
them as from Beast
They're not called
Wars.
the
They're not
Beast
like they're
Wars.
not the Animorphs. They're not Beast Bots or
Yeah.
whatever the
Yeah.
fuck, you know. Um, but yeah, I liked seeing that because that also gave it some more variety and a new distinct look to the book.
Mm-hmm. There were, yeah, I liked all those twists. Like, I think that Verity is being pursued by all of these animals, and she can't figure out why these animals, even like a
Why
rabbit
does this
steals.
gosh darn bear keep chasing
Yeah,
me?
she's like, in that you can get, okay, a bear would chase you, but a rabbit takes her backpack with like
With
this
the
compute,
copy of the computer
yeah,
that
like all
they
the
had
war
all the
crime
stuff. Yeah,
testimonies. Like the rabbit takes her backpack and runs away, and that's not something a rabbit does, and because that's a
you wascally old
it is a
rabbit.
robot in disguise.
Yeah,
And there's whale. Like they're looking for, okay, there's some massive underwater base where they're holding stakeout. And it turns out it is a transformer so massive he
it's
transforms
just a
into a
giant
giant
whale.
whale. And somebody makes the joke that he's a fish tank, and then somebody else says, well, mammal tank.
Yeah, whales are mammals.
He does transform into a tank.
So funny.
That's another thing that's really great about the prose section is that it reads almost like you don't think about the fact that they're mechanical so much. And
Not as
even when the
much. Yeah,
mechanical stuff does come up, it's not like these are giant mechs until it's like this really, deep conversation between these two comrades and the next line says he watched him transform into a motorcycle and drive away.
yeah, exactly. So I'm showing a couple, whoever is watching the video version. I'm showing a couple more pages of the art from Volume 2, stuff like that, so y'all can see what is happening there. But yeah, so Volume 2 is also, there's the rabbit and the whale right there. So Volume 2 is also kind of where we get the origin of Springer in there, which is an interesting one, which is, again, it's one of those things that's like, okay, so it started in a book that's not in this book, or it's,
Yeah.
just like, all right, now you have to explain all this stuff that maybe I should have read in something else. But apparently, what was the dude's name with the harpoon for the arm? He was the original
Impactor?
Impactor.
Yeah.
He is the I guess the original leader of the Wreckers, and he has a beef with Tarantulas, or whatever her name was, or his name was.
Yeah.
So
I think
Tarantulas had that like Frieza thing from Dragon Ball Z, where everyone thought it was a she, or they thought it was a woman, but it's not, if I'm not mistaken.
I think somebody refers to tarantulas before the reveal as like that Spider Queen or something.
Maybe I'm wrong then, but I got the vibe of like, oh yeah, this is a woman, or a female robot. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued about how things like gender and romance and relationships impact Transformers.
Yeah.
And I think there's another
Wild
line
stuff.
of comics like that does get more into that. My brother was telling me about the robots in disguise line.
Yes, that was
that's a lot
one
more
of the
about
ones
like
that I almost pitched.
it's a lot more about like the social aspects of the Transformers, which I am really interested in. If I can like get it easily, I'd want to read that. Even if I don't get half of it. The stuff I get, I know I will like.
So they have, when I was looking at what to pitch for the Transformers, the two like main series is Robots in Disguise and more than meets the eyes.
Mm.
It's like you can get Transformers, Robots in Disguise, or Transformers, more than meets the eyes. And yeah, those I think are like the main two books, and I think yeah, if what you say is right, then they do almost what the like Superman and Action Comics does. Is like one is more focused on Superman and these big like bombastic fights that he has to do, and then one is more of let's focus on Clark Kent and what he does at the
that's
at
what
the
I
news
want.
paper and stuff like that. So I almost pitched the start of those issues, but then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go with this one-off story. But yeah, so Impactor has this beef with the character that ends up being Tarantulas. I don't remember their name.
Yeah, I don't remember the original name either.
Oh well, I'm not gonna look too hard right now. Oh wait, Methuselah.
It's not that, but it's something like that.
No, it is Methuselah. That is the transformer that eventually turns into Tarantulas.
I think you're a couple letters off, maybe, but it is like that is, you can tell that is the word it is derived from.
I'm looking at the name right here. It's Methuselah.
Methuselah. See, like there's an S or something at the end of it. It's not straight up the name of the old guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to. I was like, oh, it's the 900-year-old dude from the Bible. But yeah, so they do that, and then there's this like random robot in the background. Actually, I have the exact page pulled up right here. So if you're watching on the video version, my mouse is circling this little robot dude that's just off to the side. It looks like he's not even turned on, and he's just standing there. And apparently, that robot is the character that eventually becomes Springer. This is in volume 2. It's the flashback scene where I think we first meet Methuselah and whatever Methuselah looks like.
Is that like the creation, like his artificial transformer that he made, or is that a different one? Because he was some sort of a scientist, Methuselah, and he made like he just engineered in his lab, and like they're all robots, so I guess they are kind of engineered in the lab, but he kind of artificially created a new robot.
Yeah,
that's Springer.
That's who Springer ends up being. So in the fight that Impactor has with Methuselah, he thinks he defeats Methuselah, or does one of the things where like I kicked you down the bottomless pit. Who knows where that leads?
I'm done.
Probably dead, but who knows? Maybe you'll come back. And then he ends up like taking this other robot who's just he's not really been programmed yet, really, and basically turns him into an Autobot, and eventually is like, hey, I'm gonna kind of groom you to be the new leader of the Wreckers. And yeah, they set it all up, which is kind of the underlying story of Volume 2, but like we said, it ends up kind of being inconsequential. It's not as... It doesn't have the same emotional weight that Iron Fist. Is that his name? Am I saying
It is
that
Iron
right?
Fist, and then his pen name is Physitron, because he is writing like the records of the Wreckers, and he's like publishing this. Like he's their unofficial like
this week on the Wreckers podcast we have
he sort of unofficially named himself like, I'm their chronicler, and he writes these bombastic, passionate, like adoring tales,
telenovelas of
yes.
Yeah, and like I think that story had a lot more emotional weight to it, because at the end, when everything is kind of revealed that Springer is this creation of Tarantulas or of Methuselah, Springer just doesn't care.
Yeah, there's
Almost.
not much that turns into. No.
Yeah, and so I thought that aspect fell a little bit flat. Whereas I think that the real story was the relationship between Impactor and Springer. That is like what do you do with that? Someone who is this artificially created transformer, and yeah, like did I do the right thing by making him an Autobot? Where he didn't really get to pick what, if that's a thing. I'm not even sure, but like we're just like, we're branding you an Autobot, and we're gonna groom you to do this
his
one
first
specific
memory
job. And it's just this whole weight of like, is that the right thing to do? Was I a good dad or was I not? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, what did you think of Volume 2?
The story was definitely easier for me to follow, and I like Tarantulas better as a villain than Overlord. I like that one part of Overlord where he's like, I just want Megatron's attention. But like Tarantulas as a whole was like scarier and like easier to get than Overlord.
Yeah.
I don't know, like this is such a wild thing, but like the noise maze and like, yeah Prowl is
neat.
just beaming his consciousness into Cup's head. Yeah, it gets all weird and metaphysical in book 2. And I dug that. I also liked Verity's storyline that she'd been around, like she had been exposed to too much Transformer. It was slowly poisoning her and killing her.
Yeah.
And she's like, Iron Fist just did what he was told. He was a good Autobot, and like he was slowly dying, but he went to go sacrifice himself for the good of the team. I'm not doing that. I am going to expose Prowl before I die.
Which, if you guys didn't really put it together out there, Prowl is more like the Nick Fury / Amanda Waller character who's orchestrating this stuff, but who's also kind of involved. And yeah.
Verity's the one human in the story, and it seems like she's like there's backstory to her that didn't really come across in this book. Like she also seems like somebody carried over from earlier comics.
Yeah, one thing I found out, I was looking at, let's see, do I already have it pulled up? Nope, that's the IDW page. So I typed in the Wreckers Saga on Google, and it comes up with a Transformers wiki. And on that page, it says, actually, if I go to that page for the Wreckers Saga and follow it to the Last Stand, blah blah blah, it says the Last Stand of the Wreckers follows the reassembly of the Wreckers team after the events of All Hail Megatron Maxi,
which we don't know anything about.
We didn't read. So I don't know if I don't know if any of these characters were in that, or we saw them in Transformers More Than Meets the Eye, or who knows what. You know,
I want to take a sec and talk about how Optimus Prime is treated. In this story, because he's like this living god.
He is like, there. He's up on this pedestal, and I thought that was so weird.
Like, if you have seen him, it's like this amazing life-altering experience. Like, I will never forget the day Optimus Prime talked to me. But also, the closest
never watching this sprocket again.
The closest thing I could compare it to is kind of like the way they treat Merlin in the Harry Potter series, where Merlin was a real man. You are given, like, Order of Merlin, first class, this great award if you are a great wizard. But also, he's like a curse, or they're like, oh, Merlin's beard, I forgot my potions homework. They kind of do that for Optimus Prime.
Am I missing something? I don't remember Merlin being a big thing in the Harry Potter.
He's not a character, but they just make allusions to him having existed.
Okay. Fair enough.
And
just
Optimus
like Nicholas
Prime,
Flamel.
Yeah. Well, he is alive at the time of the first book. We're not here to talk about Harry Potter.
Well,
That's
I
that's
just
an entire different
I
rabbit hole.
mention
So
I mention his name because that is an important name in alchemy stuff.
oh, I forget he's a real man.
Yeah. So
I was
there you
thinking
go.
strictly about the fictional Nicholas Flamel, like the guy who made the Sorcerer's Stone, and then he's like, "Oh, it's destroyed. Well, I've lived long enough. No more immortality for me, I guess. I'll just finish this paperwork and quietly die, thanks."
Yeah.
But that's the closest comparison I've got. But Optimus Prime is still alive, and he's like at least a vague acquaintance to everybody. Like they're
I mean, I would say more like Superman.
Yeah, kind of like that, but like even more like revered and godlike. Like there's a big focus on like mental health in this story, which is really interesting,
Mhm.
especially in those prose logs. All the prose bits
Mhm, yeah.
talk about like there's a psychologist sort of character named Rung who is interviewing several of these Autobots that we see, and they mention there's a disease like there's some mental condition called
I
like
I wonder if his name is is a bit of a like a psychology joke. There was Carl Jung, or however you say his last name.
Young.
But
Yeah.
if
Huh.
I'm just being stupid and being like, well, it's a robot version of Jung, so instead of Jung, it's Rung. R
I
for
d-
robots.
I d- that might very well be it. That was a name I could not figure
I'm
out.
just being an idiot.
Or maybe he's a fire truck and he's got a ladder out of his back.
Who
Who
knows?
knows? But there's a mental condition where people hallucinate and think like they have this delusion of grandeur where like, yeah, I am Optimus Prime, and it's called like Dea
Oh,
or Deo is like one of the root words in this name for this
it's
condition.
something like apotheosis.
Apotheosis, that's it,
Well,
which is
that's
like
one of the words. I don't remember what the first one
yeah,
was.
an
It's something
apotheosis is a
apotheosis.
term for like you become like a god. Optimus Prime is he's not just like he's the best cool guy. He's more than just being like the Master Chief, more than being almost
That's a
like a
good one.
Superman. Like he's a god to these people, but a god
Transformers.
that like you have a chance of running into at a party. I really want to read
It's
more comics in the series just to see other ways that they treat Optimus Prime.
so again. So according to the Transformers
Hmm.
wiki, Primus apotheosis or
Yes.
Primus apotheosis, I guess that's how you say that word, is a recognized Cybertronian personality
Hmm.
disorder that affects 2% of all Autobots and even the odd Decepticon. It is, let me zoom this because I'm getting old and I can't see. It is a particularly acute form of hero worship characterized by the obsessive need to specifically emulate Optimus Prime. Its major symptoms include the constant quoting of notable sayings by
Yes.
Prime, altering one's physical form to appear more similar to
Hmm.
Prime, and sacrificing one's own life at the earliest opportunity for even the most remotely noble goal. And Pyro, who is one of the
Yes.
characters in this book, he has that.
And that's a really good that gives a lot of background to the scene in Last Stand of the Wreckers where there's you have to sacrifice yourself to open up that computer that has like all these it's called Aquitus or something like that. The computer that has all this war crime confession on it. You have to sacrifice yourself and it has to be voluntary. Like the computer knows if you just shove somebody in there against their will.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's all these arguments about like who's going to step in there and do it. And Pyro's like, I could, but I meant to die very heroically, not just turning a computer on. So
Yeah,
no, count me
like
out.
he wants to, but he doesn't think that it's what Optimus would do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like what would Optimus do?
He's like, I know I'm destined to die very soon, but not
And
here.
this is where it goes back to Iron Fist and why
Yeah.
he's on the team. They kind of manipulated him to be on the team so that when this thing happened, he would be the one that sacrificed himself because he knew he was already going to die and no one else really knew. So when that came up, he was like, I get it now. Okay. All right, it sucks, but
rough.
I do want to add that further down on that Wikipedia page or the Transformers Wikipedia page on Primus Apotheosis, it says the word apotheosis is an obscure term that refers to the transformation of a mortal into a god.
Yes,
although this is likely meant to refer to the sufferers of the disease, putting Optimus Prime on a high godlike pedestal. The fact that the original term was meant literally adds another level to the Prime as the Christ figure imagery that occurs throughout the franchise.
Yeah, which was something I was vaguely familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And like to see it like put forth, not quite literally, but so strongly, was very interesting. I do want to dig into the rest of this franchise to just them and this god robot. So what does that make Megatron? Is Megatron the devil robot?
Yeah, potentially.
Wow.
I mean, I would imagine so. Just on like simple black and white terms, like this is the good guy, that's the bad guy. Oh well.
Yeah, he's the Lucifer of robots.
Yeah. We mentioned this, the whole apotheosis. I hope I'm saying that word right. It's not like apotheos or something like that. I don't know how to say all those names.
This is one of the stages in the hero's journey also.
Okay, yeah.
So this is why you get an English major on the podcast.
The only thing that I retained from the hero's journey is they adventure into hell and then they come back out.
Yeah, apotheosis is one of those stages, if I remember right, and I do remember that is how my professors pronounced it. So okay, cool. That's gotta be correct.
What was there anything else in these books that you thought was strange to you? I have a very odd and specific thing that was very strange to me. But I want to know if you picked up on this.
Oh,
they have teeth. Like why? Why do they have teeth? It's just so weird to me.
They were teeth.
Why do
I do remember
Autobots
seeing
have
like
teeth?
one of them had their mouth open and there was something like it wasn't protruding like a tongue, but there was like a line. There was like an indentation, a shape in their mouth cavity like a tongue. I'm like, what? Who is this for?
Like, do they eat food?
I think
do they digest stuff.
They drink oil, like it's called like injects, like en, like energy.
But you wouldn't necessarily have to eat that or drink it in a humanoid fashion. Like they are robots. They are mechanical with this like soul spark thing, with like a spark of a soul inside them, so that like they could literally plug it in to their wrist or their hip or their back or wherever. Like they don't need to eat it like we would.
This is why we gotta read more. Like, I don't care about like any of the actual like plot things. I just want
how does their society work?
Yes, I just want life stuff. I just want a slice of life Transformers story where it's like, do you have restaurants?
Mommy, where do baby Transformers come from?
Exactly. How do you make a new one? Are there family units? Are there couples? How does this go? Do the Transformers marry each other?
Did Optimus Prime ever have a wet dream?
Yeah, all of it. I want to know all of this. Does he have a husband I don't know about?
This is great. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this book has a lot of fascinating stuff. I don't know if it was told in the best way.
This seems really directed at, you're already a Transformers fan, you are already familiar with what's going on, and we're looking at it as just these outsiders who wandered in knowing the very basic concepts about Transformers. And like I said, I did not get this for the most part, but what I got, like, I can tell there's really strong stuff in here.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued enough that I would seek out more. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back and get the context that I was missing.
Exactly. I think that's about it that I have to say for this book. I
Yeah.
don't really have much else. Good
It's
job.
yeah.
Co-team.
Great read. Yes, yes. Give yourself time to read it. Don't try and barrel through this thing like I did. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Also, I was reading this on my tablet, and like, it's so wordy, and
Yeah.
like, I'm looking at the full page view, and so the text is very little. I'm like, that's a lot of eye strain. Prepare yourselves. Take breaks, get up, walk around, have a snack.
Thankfully, my laptop is one of those ones that can like fold backwards and act as a tablet.
Aren't you fancy?
So it's like, not only do I have a tablet, but I have like an extra like big one.
Dang, that's a good idea.
So, and a lot of the comics I can just like fold it backwards and just use the like normal like horizontal way, because the actual page will be a good size. But this, I had to turn. I was like, the text is so small, I need it like full and big.
Yeah.
I had a random question I was going to ask you, and I just forgot what it was. Oh well. It slipped my mind.
We'll
Melissa,
remember eventually. Yes.
Yeah, it is your turn to pitch some stuff that we will be reading and or watching or consuming for this next week. What do you got for me? So,
because you inadvertently pitched something where the main character has the same name as you, I thought I'd just do the same in the interest of fairness.
Good stuff.
This is a audio drama podcast called the Hadron Gospel Hour.
I've heard of this one.
Yes. And this was one of the co-creators is a man named Michael McQuilkin, and so the main character is kind of based off him, and his name is Mike Wilkinson.
There you go.
And this is a show. This is from my podcast app is telling me the first episode was released back in 2013.
Okay.
And I'd like to listen to season 1, and that's 9 episodes. Perfect. And they're all like 30 to 50 minutes long. And the plot of this is that Mike Wilkinson is this sort of IT guy, and this mad scientist sort of ropes him into being his traveling buddy as they go throughout these multiple dimensions that this like hadron reactor collider accidentally broke open.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to expose this to the world. You know something about podcasting? Yes? Well, come with me and please podcast my scientific findings to the world. And they just travel around to all these weird multiverses, and sometimes it goes outside of their narrative and it acts almost like a sketch show. Mm-hmm. Like we're just listening to some random part of some universe they've been through. It's like a little bit sitcom, a little bit sketchy, and really nice audio drama, like good sound production and music and acting and all that.
Okay. Good stuff. Before you continue on to pitch number 2, we need to go back for a sec and do recommendations for people who may have enjoyed the Wreckers Saga.
Oh, dang. All right. Well, I will put this on hold then.
So while you might need to collect your thoughts because you were like, I'm going to do all my pitch stuff, I will go ahead and do my recommendations. So we kind of pitched this as at the start of like, hey, this is kind of like the Suicide Squad stuff. If you want, you can check out Suicide Squad. It is a very similar story or type of story, as well as X-Force. Which, if you guys are not familiar with X-Force, this is basically a team of X-Men that are like, all right, like we get that we're not supposed to kill and do all the bad stuff, but sometimes these threats are just too bad that we might need to take someone out. So I think it's like Wolverine and Cyclops and I think not Deathstroke. Deadpool, I think, makes an appearance on X-Force and stuff like that, and they're the ones who will go do the, like, they might be a little murderous, but they're doing it for good reasons. And then I want to give a shout out to a book I haven't read yet, but I've heard nothing but good things. This is a book called Copra. And let me pull this up on Wikipedia. I heard this is also like a Suicide Squad type of book. Whoops, that's not what I want. I don't want creators one. Where is it? Let me do Boop-a-doop. Bro, where are you? Okay, let me open it up from the Image Comics website. According to the Image Comics website, the description says, they're ugly, they're mean, but up until today, they've always been loyal. So when one of their own betrays them, Copper has no choice but to turn their nightmarish skills back on everyone who ever even looked at them funny. Here it is, the first 6 issues of Michelle Pfeiffer's critically acclaimed superhero revenge machine. Yeah, it from what I've heard is it is the Suicide Squad done right.
Okay.
Or it is, yeah, like superheroes gone bad type of thing. It's one that I haven't read, but I've heard nothing but good things from. So I might say go check that book out.
Neat. I don't have anything to recommend based on like the kind of ragtag, we're the team you call in when nobody else can get the job done or anything else. It's about like, when are robots alive? I don't have anything on that level, but on the level of, this is a classic like Saturday morning cartoon story we're all familiar with. We think it's kind of cheesy, but this is a time when it is taken seriously. This is something I always go back to. Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, which was an animated series that ran on Cartoon Network some years ago. And it's a little bit more teen mystery solving. It's not that far away from something like a Buffy, for instance, but it's far more serious than you are used to seeing Scooby-Doo. And it takes a much more mature, thoughtful, emotional look at all of the characters. There's also a comic series called Scooby-Doo Apocalypse that I read the first couple issues of, and I've been meaning to go back to, where, Velma is a scientist who works for a lab, and she finds out they've accidentally triggered the apocalypse, and it's just the gang in the van, just traveling around trying to fight the apocalypse. And that's also like real hard looks at terror.
Yeah. So you mentioned Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. We covered season 1 of that show back on episode 25 of the Whatnauts review show.
We did that last Halloween.
Yeah. Actually, it was September 23rd is when that episode came out. So
that's right.
Just a little bit before that. But
I believe I remember extending Halloween to all of October and September.
Yeah.
I just got the spooky started really early.
Yeah, so that was a good one. Go back and check that out.
Okay.
Yes. So back to pitches. Pitch number 1 was the Hadron Gospel Hour.
Yes.
Season 1, episodes 1 through 9.
Yeah. Yep.
Correct. Okay. Perfect.
I did that because I figured we had a Springer. We could now have a Wilkinson. And the other 2 pitches are just me looking at my DVD shelf saying, What haven't I watched in a while? What sounds good?
Sometimes that's what you gotta do.
This is the handy part of physical media. Whenever I'm stuck, I just have to go in my living room and just look at the shelves like,
Hmm.
this one seems fine. So, pitch number 2. How do you feel about watching the Muppet movie again, Kyle?
I don't know if the word again applies. I
Whoa!
may have seen it. I don't
You
remember.
may have.
I may have.
We were a Muppet loving household, but the Muppet Caper, the Great Muppet Caper, was my favorite, and I watched it so much. And I found that I remember very little about the Muppet movie anymore.
Okay.
And I've just been feeling nostalgic lately. And it's a road trip movie, it's a musical, it's a story about a wacky group that gets together because they have a dream and they want to go to Hollywood and they make it big. You know, featuring all the Muppet friends you should know and love. You know all these guys, right? I hold the
Mhm.
DVD up. You know these
Yeah, I not all of their names, but I know them.
names.
I know Kermit. I know oh fuck. What is it? Like I know there's the wild one. I don't remember his name.
So
Yeah, sure. That
wow,
guy. Uh
wow,
I know there's the teddy bear looking one.
Fozzie Bear.
Sure, that guy. I I know there's Miss Piggy.
Yes.
There's what is the isn't he the smaller one? Real thin head, do wiry
Oh, Beaker.
black hair? Sure, that guy. See,
you
I know the Muppets.
you may need to be schooled in this, Kyle. This is a beautiful film, a amazing musical, very charming, very funny. The Muppets are they have serious comedic talent behind
Mm-hmm.
them. And I look at this DVD, I've not watched this movie in a very long time, and now that I'm adult, it's got a litany of celebrity cameos, and now I actually know these names. Look, we've got Madeline Kahn, Carol Kane, Cloris Leachman, Orson Welles himself is in this.
That's the
Elliot
one that I
Gould.
recognize.
I didn't know who Elliot Gould was when I was 8 years old. Now I do, and I can watch him interact with a puppet. You can also, Kyle.
You can too for just 3 simple installments of $19.99.
Yes, Jim Henson's The Muppet Movie. What year is this from? This is from 1978, I think.
Wonderful.
Yes. All right, pitch number 3. We haven't done a compare and contrast in a while. The last time
haven't.
we did it was in December when we read Grant Morrison's Happy,
Mm-hmm.
and then we watched the television adaptation of it. And I am
Season
proposing.
2 is already out, but I don't think it got continued. I think it got
Oh,
canceled after season 2.
Are you familiar with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Kyle?
I am familiar.
Okay, good. This is the cult hit novel. It was a series of books, but the first one is one people really latch onto by British author Douglas Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1981, the BBC turned this into a 6-episode miniseries. And then I believe this was 2005, it was all condensed into one theatrical motion picture.
There you go.
So we can watch the 6-episode 1981 BBC series and the most recent movie. The movie's got Martin Freeman, Mos Def, Sam Rockwell, Zooey Deschanel, and Alan Rickman as the robot.
There you go.
If you want more robots
Pretty
in your
good
day.
cast.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a story about Earth is destroyed by aliens who believe Earth is just basically insignificant, and they're going to put basically an intergalactic highway where Earth is. And there's one alien on Earth who grabs his best friend and takes him away before the Earth explodes. And his best friend's like, "What? I didn't even know there were aliens this morning. Now I'm out in space. I'm in my bathrobe. How do I live now?" And he's like, "Well, I thankfully am a co-writer of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Arthur, this will help you out."
I got you covered.
Again, this is also kind of a road trip story, I guess. Yeah. We're gonna hop through space.
Trip.
We're just gonna learn how to live now that Earth is destroyed.
There you go.
Yes.
Good stuff.
3 very different options. I went themeless this week.
Pitch number 1, Hadron Gospel Hour, season 1. Pitch number 2 was the Muppet movie, and pitch number 3 is compare and contrast between the original TV miniseries adaptation of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and
which is on Hulu.
movie.
I stopped and looked it up to make sure this wasn't some obscure thing only I owned a copy of. It's on Hulu.
I think I want to go with Hadron Gospel Hour.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. We barely do audio dramas, so when they come up, I'm always like, "Ooh, yeah, good." And I'm always like, I should come up with some more of them that I should pitch, and then I never do. And then you're always the one that's like, I have audio dramas to pitch.
It's always me, but then I never know. I barely know comics, and I've never pitched a manga. So we cover each other's weak points.
There you go. Exactly. So yeah, I want to do that one. I think I've actually listened to the first part of the first episode, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of those like wacky sci-fi, some kind of audio drama stuff. A long time ago, years ago though.
Yeah, this thing did come out almost 6 years ago.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm interested in checking that one out.
Okay.
And that's episode 1 through 9.
Yes, which is a weird episode count, but episode 9 is the season finale.
Cool. Good to know. That is what we will cover for next week then on episode 65.
I'm gonna revisit. Yeah, we're getting up there.
We are getting up there. Good stuff. Well, thank you all for joining us on this episode of the review show. Melissa, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WilkyWit. That's WILKYWIT.
I am at Kyle Springer on both Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want updates with this show or any of the other podcasts that we do, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. You can go check us out on our website, thewhatnauts.com. Listen to us anywhere you get your podcast. Just search for the Whatnauts and all of our stuff will come up. Go follow us on YouTube. You can use your help. Go follow us on Twitch, because we could use your help there too. Go like, share, subscribe, do all of that stuff. Patreon.com/thewhatnauts is where you can support us for as low as $1 a month. It would help us out a ton. For the people at the $5 tier, we want to give shout outs to all of you guys. So thank you very much to Sam and Christine for helping us out, keeping the mics on, and just helping us make this content. We always want to make bigger, better content for you all. And that helps us out a ton to be able to cover our costs. Make this magic happen. I guess that's it.
Yeah, we're all done.
Yeah, exactly. We will see you guys next week then. Adios.
Bye.
Hey, thank you for checking out that episode of the Whatnauts review show. Go like, share, subscribe, write a comment down below if you know how Transformers babies are made. Let us know in the comment below. Is that an actual thing? That just fascinates me. Go subscribe to our channel up here. That'll be right over there. Go watch one of our other videos down here. We got all sorts of other podcasts. It might not be an episode of the review show. It might be the Reactor Core. It might be the Captain's Log. Who knows? Go check it out. That'll help us out a ton. We will see you guys next week. Thank you very much. We love you. Bye.